Okay, now I'm going to look at proving theism and disproving atheism, and I'm going to look at it as a detective, and I'm just going to look at two areas of proof and see which one is the most likely suspect. And when you investigate a homicide, which I did in the past, and you look, and if you have a dead person there, the first thing you look is, did they die of natural causes? Did they have a disease or something, other problem? And figure out whether it happened by itself. The second, is it accidental? Did they fall off a ladder or something like that? The third is suicide, and then everything would be right there in the room too. You wouldn't be looking outside for anything else. And the fourth is homicide, and homicide means that there was probably and someone that, if they're not in the room still, it happened by someone else, and then they're probably outside the room, and they never hang around anymore with a homicide, so they're outside the room. So we're going to look at a couple of things here real quick. Did universe come together by itself, or did it have an outside cause? Atheism is just as much an assertion as theism. Therefore, the burden of proof falls equally. In the beginning, God, Genesis 1 verse 1. The atheist would need to have complete knowledge of all time and space in all dimensions to know for sure that God does not exist. And they don't try to disprove God, they just assume there is no God, and that's a big problem for a detective. You have to be open to all possibilities. In the first law of thermodynamics, matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. The ideas came up fairly recently, and Stephen Hawking says the universe was created by nothing. Dr. Lawrence Krauss, our universe arose spontaneously from nothing at all. And so how did it all come together? If you break a law of physics, then you are not establishing nature did it, you are establishing the supernatural, but they aren't interested in the supernatural as a possible suspect in the case. And a lot of people try to deny that, and they try to say matter was eternal, but they did come up with that conclusion, and we're going to look at some of the evidence. Paul Davies, English physicist and professor. There is for me powerful evidence that there's something going on behind it all. It seems as though somebody has fine-tuned nature's number to make the universe. The impression of design is overwhelming, and I think this is a very true statement that he makes, and just the most likely way to look at the evidence is it couldn't come together and show this great design by chance. And Brian Thomas says, if our universe were billions of years old, we would see countless millions of supernova remnants from all the stars that died over the eons, but we don't. And so they think all the stars form from other supernovas exploding, and that's part of their story of the universe. But how did that all start without a different supernova? And where are all the remnants? And actually, they look at the remnants, and there's, considering they happen about every 26 years, the numbers that are observed in the universe are about the number you expect if the universe was 6,000 years old. The universe is a time, space, matter continuing. In the beginning time, God created the heavens, that space, and the earth, matter. So how did the time, space, and matter come together with the atheistic worldview? They just can't explain it. And believing the universe created itself requires more faith and evidence than accepting an always existing God, Yahweh, transferred his energy into existence. And this is consistent with the first law of thermodynamics that energy cannot create itself, but energy can come from energy, and the universe is full of energy, and it came from the Creator God. Lee Strobel makes a good case. Looking at the doctrine of Darwinism, which undergirded my atheism for so many years, it didn't take me long to conclude that it was simply too far-fetched to be credible. I realized that if I were to embrace Darwinism in its underlying premise of naturalism, I would have to believe that nothing produces everything, non-life produces life, randomness produces fine-tuning, chaos produces information, unconsciousness produces consciousness, non-reason produces reason. The central pillars of evolutionary theory quickly rotted away when exposed to scrutiny. So you got to scrutinize these ideas, and these are big problems. We're going to look at primarily life from non-life, but consciousness from unconsciousness is a huge problem for the naturalists. They don't admit it, but it is a huge problem. Being able to reason coming from the natural, and just there's a lot of different evidences they can't prove, and Lee Strobel looked at it in a way scrutinizing all these ideas, and he came to the conclusion that there was a God. Jeff Tompkins, PhD in genetics, Clemson University, that's the biggest problem for evolution. How life got started, because you need DNA to make protein, you need DNA to make RNA, and you need RNA to make proteins. So it's worse than what came first, the chicken or the egg. So this is a big critical thinking. How did it all come together? Uh, the proteins came together to make DNA or RNA, but it takes DNA to make the proteins, and it takes DNA to make RNA, and RNA makes the proteins. And so how did it all come together? By time plus chance. It's a huge problem. The human genome, I see incredibly intelligent design. An analogy of the human genome stored on DNA is the instructions stored in a book. A book genome would contain 23 chapters, chromosomes. Each chapter contains 48 to 250 million letters A, C, G, T without spaces. Hence, the book contained over 3.2 billion letters total. The book fits into a cell, the nucleus cell nucleus the size of a pinpoint. At least one copy of the book, all 23 chapters, is contained in most cells in our body. And that's from Wikipedia. Just our human genome is incredible. How did this all come together? And how this DNA, RNA, and then you need ATP too to get it to work. Stephen Myers, we don't have a single example in history of science in which information has come from anything other than intelligence. There is no property of physics or chemistry that can account for the information we see in DNA. Information comes from an intelligent source. Information is a sign. And atheists hate to call DNA information, but it is information because it sends this information to RNA, and it sends information actually to molecular machines inside the cell, and it actually sends messages to other cells. It's information if they can understand it and can do something as a result. It meets the requirement of information, and the evolutionists, the atheists, just refuse to acknowledge the obvious. Danish Sabar, dear evolutionists, if evolution is true, Why DNA is still DNA and not in another form? Why don't we see it changing anywhere? Why isn't it getting better? We see DNA all the way in the Cambrian level, in the original life forms, supposedly, and we don't see it changing at all. Jake Herbert, PhD Physics, University of Texas at Dallas. The real issue is, do the laws of physics and chemistry in our universe permit life to come from non-life? All of our scientific observations are indicating that the answer is no. They cannot explain it. They're set up for life, but they can't explain how it came into being. 1,000 years ago, scientifically ignorant men thought that life could spontaneously erupt from non-living matter, and that's what Darwin believed. It came from this wonderful primordial soup. Today, some still think that to be the case, they call themselves atheists. Think it's not illegal yet. You can still think. Atheists, and Darwin thought it still. He was sure of it. Louis Pasteur proved it wrong a few years after Darwin wrote his book, and a lot of people still think, well, it must have happened. Well, it's never been observed. Science has proven that wrong. The probability of getting 5 royal flushes in a row is astronomical. If that happens, you would reasonably conclude the game is somehow rigged. The probability of functional sequence of amino acids in several known proteins arising from chance is another huge astronomical number, or 1 in 10 to the 63. 1 in 10 to 50 is considered impossible. The probability of a functional simple cell to arise without intelligent design, given all the ingredients, is 1 in 10 to the 57,800. That is beyond impossible. They could fill the universe with all the parts for a simple cell. They would never come together. They can take a dead cell and try to take it and revive it. It doesn't work. And life only comes from life. Entropy in physics indicates things left on their own will ultimately reduce themselves to chaos. Single cell scum could never advance into complexity and then evolve into man. So, second law of thermodynamics is called entropy. It's true of everything. They talk about it not being true in an open source, but that's only talking about energy. It's not talking about matter. Matter always degrades, and energy can be charged up, recharged, but we've never observed it in nature happening. Entropy is a universal law that has never been proven wrong, and it disproves atheism. Evolunach believe miraculous single cell organisms from ancient past magically morphed into plants, insects, dinosaurs, and aquatic animals and land mammals over time, yet have the hypocritical nerve to say that Christians believe in fairy tales. And that's a big, big problem. That's the truth. They have a wonderful fairy tale that has no evidence, but the suspect in the case, as from this homicide detective says, it is the God of the Bible. It's none of the other gods. It is the God of the Bible. Lord Calvin says, overpoweringly strong proofs of intelligent and benevolent designs lie all around us, and if ever perplexities were metaphysical or scientific, turn us away from them for a time, they come back upon us with the irresistible force, showing to us through nature the influence of a free will and teaching us that all living things depend on one ever-acting creator and ruler, a supernatural, immaterial, infinitely powerful creator and ruler that's still ruling today and has always existed. Is atheism even rational? Life looks designed, but it's not. DNA looks like it contains information, but it's not information. Objective morality looks like it exists, but it doesn't. They don't have objective morality. Their morality is subjective. The earth looks finely tuned for life, but it isn't. Everything that begins to exist has a cause except for the universe. It seems we have ultimate proof, but we don't. It seems like we have free will, but we don't. So that's a huge problem for atheism. That shows that atheism is not rational. The big problem with Darwinism is his goal was to disprove there was a God, and he said it was scientifically concluded evidence, it was a fact, so therefore there is no God. In Darwinism, we hear no intelligent design, we see no intelligent design, we speak no intelligent design, when the intelligent design is all around us. Theists 2 plus 2 equals 4. Atheists source. They don't like the evidence. They don't like logic and scrutiny and